Welcome to Talking Sens, the iMoney podcast. I'm your host, Azrin, and today we have a very special guest from CapBay, Mr. Darrel, co-founder of CapBay, if I'm not mistaken, right? Today we're going to talk a lot about CapBay, how you guys got started, future plans, innovation, and all that good stuff. So thank you for coming over and joining us today, Darrel.
Thanks so much, Azrin, for having me. I would also like to thank iMoney as well for giving this opportunity. Very much excited to actually have this conversation.
Awesome. We'll get right into it. The first thing we need to do before we get into the CapBay stuff, of course, we need to know a little bit about yourself. If you don't mind, tell us a bit about your background before CapBay.
Yeah, sure. So I've actually had quite a lot of diverse experience in finance. Even at different cities, had spent a bit of time in banks in Malaysia for internships, even some time in London doing management consulting, particularly looking at financial services. Then after that, I actually moved back to Malaysia. Was in Bank Negara doing regulatory work. And then finally also spending some time in the private sector side doing Credit Suisse investment banking.
Oh, yeah. So you've been quite a bit of experience in the finance sector at that point, right?
Yes, yes. So I'd say all these experiences have definitely helped me form and shape who I am.
So all these different diverse experiences, how did it help you build your entrepreneurial mindset in a sense?
Yeah, good question. I think for me, firstly, when it comes to Bank Negara, I think that actually gave me a good understanding about how behind the scenes the banks operate. Because in some ways, being a regulator, you can have to play the regulatory card and actually understand and inspect how the banks operate. So that actually gave me the insights behind the scenes of how these banks operate. And I realized that even back then, you could see that there's a lot of room for improvement for both technology, a lot of manual work, a lot of traditional methods that can be improved, as well as there's risk appetite or segments. I think it's still fairly traditional and fairly limited, where there's actually a lot of room to actually grow.
But just to pick your brain on that, right? Because you come into this traditional system. You coming in, what was the reception in terms of them keeping to that same mentality or accepting new mentality? Because I feel like one of the key issues a lot for banking system in Malaysia that they prefer traditional methods. They prefer staying to their own ecosystem rather than improving. Do you feel that kind of pushback from Bank Negara per se? Are they hesitant for changes in there?
Yeah, so on that note, during my time there, I would say it has definitely evolved. Back then, I'll be surprised if they allow a lot of fintechs to actually operate together with traditional banks. So, fast forward 10, 15 years later, actually we've seen quite an involvement of the whole industry. Each regulator, both Bank Negara and Securities Commission, have started regulatory sandbox because they know that banks and the role for fintechs is actually evolving to actually improve financial inclusion. So that's actually a very important factor for a lot of these regulators to actually cultivate more innovation, more transparency, more compliance when it comes to mixing alternative or traditional alternative or new methods and innovative methods to the traditional incumbents.
Actually, that's a great point because I do want to go more into the idea of financial inclusion and in providing access to the SME. But before that, can we just jump back to your different experiences? Because you've worked with different companies. You worked at Credit Suisse. Where else did you work there? And how did this all experiences help build CapBay? How did experiences build into that?
So yes, Credit Suisse was also one, and so much so that I got my ass kind of kicked, working 100-hour weeks.
Wow.
That's quite common, but that actually helped me to work together with a lot of great personalities across the whole globe, and also interact with. Back then, I was helping companies raise equity, so IPOs, rights issues, and these are typically billion-dollar companies. So who really understand what really makes a company tick. But yeah, having said that, when I look closer to home, that's when I wanted to move back to Malaysia. There was actually a lot of business owners that are very capable, have great ideas, but access to financing was a crucial pain point for them.
Accessibility has always been an issue for Malaysian businesses, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So instead of us, instead of kind of waiting for it to happen, I felt
So you guys made the spark to do it. Then you get kickstarted, right?
Exactly. So that's why we thought, instead of just waiting for the transaction, we decided to actually take matters into our own hands to actually start CapBay. So much so that fun fact, I actually did a master's thesis, a 20,000 word report in peer-to-peer financing.
Oh,
and as soon as I heard that P2P licenses were opening up in Malaysia, I thought, this is it. I'm gonna move back from Singapore, take a 90% pay cut and actually just jump into the world of entrepreneurship.
So you're jumping to the deep end of things.
Yeah.
I feel like it paid off.
Oh well, yeah, it's been exciting. Definitely.
But you talked about like doing P2P on your masters, right? But during at the time, was P2P a relatively new concept, and was it widely accepted, or is it like people were hesitant to use P2P as a financing platform? Because like I personally did not know about P2P until quite recent, so this is like a very new market to me.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. I think that was the gist of my master's report back then, because it was on the back of the 2008 global financial crisis, where SMEs were finding it very hard to get financing, and you have also investors that are getting only 0 or 0.25% interest rate on their deposit. So it was right for intermediary to actually come in that actually bridges this gap, and this intermediates the whole bank's ecosystem. So investors can directly invest into all these loans. So yes, I mean, then coming back to Malaysia, it is definitely a form where we see a lot of demand for all these borrowers to actually come in. And yes, you're right, where we do want to ensure P2P financing does pick up in terms of adoption. We are seeing since the introduction, I think close to 7-8 years ago in Malaysia, it has definitely picked up. But there's still a lot more room to grow. I think the regulators, even the government as well, has come up with a lot of initiatives to actually help the P2P financing sector, and as well as the crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, to actually innovate, as well as to give them support. For example, like the MySIF, the Malaysian Co-Investment Fund. Yes. So we do see a lot of regulatory also support coming in to actually go out on like helping with organized roadshows to Penang, to Kota Kinabalu, Kuching, and so on.
So there's a lot of initiatives on the side of the government regulatory bodies to help you guys really expand the idea of P2P financing, right?
Yes, definitely.
I just want to go back to the whole the difference in banking between like Credit Suisse and like Western banking system and Malaysian banking system. Coming from that side, from the Western side, right, and coming back to Malaysia, was there much difference there? Was there a huge gap in terms of like how the system was? Did it feel like we were lacking a lot compared to the Western banking system, or are we acceptable, or are we open to like changes to that sense?
Yes, definitely. I think even till now, the developed markets like US, UK, even some might say Hong Kong, Singapore, they're still much more developed compared to developing countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines. I think generally, I think the maturity of the market, where you can see the investors, the type of investment products and so on, have evolved quite significantly compared to developing markets. I think here it's still a little bit more traditional risk appetite. There, you can invest even in things like art, invest in things like security providers, like as in either land or industrial and so on, which here is slowly starting to pick up when it comes to private credit initiatives.
So it's still it's still in the infancy stages, I would say, in like in Malaysia, right?
Yeah.
But I would hope they're still open to expand the market there, right? Because something I feel like we will talk later in like you guys expanding to different market sectors as well. But as we get into that, let's take a quick break and we will talk a bit about the start of CapBay. This time we're going to talk about more on CapBay and how Darrel started the whole journey there. But with CapBay itself, like what was the turning point that made you want to take the leap and start CapBay? Because I imagine it's not an easy decision to be doing this?
Yeah. So I think, the experiences that I felt really drove me to this, where I realized, coming back from kind of an engineering degree, I think I had that sense of trying to solve problems with the limited amount of most efficient way. And when you look at the Malaysian, or in fact the Southeast Asian economy, a lot of business owners actually face struggle to actually get access to financing. They have great ideas, great business that they have, but just struggle because ultimately the traditional systems have not really supported them enough. They're just not ready for this funding this type of solution. And that's why we realized that there is definitely a need for alternative financiers to come in to actually help and assist all these struggling businesses to actually get better access to financing that is flexible and fast, and also even at a good, reasonable rate.
So it is like a huge problem that traditional banking has not been able to solve, right? And that's where you guys come in to provide this sort of like a connection between financial inclusion for people there. But interesting you said engineering, because I just want to ask you, coming from an engineering background, how does that perspective help you in dealing in the financial sector? Do you have a unique perspective to it, or is this just it's just another problem to you?
Yeah. I think for me, what you study does not necessarily
means what you end up doing. Right?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, actually, a lot of the financiers during my time in banking world, so they
come from different
I think there was one, in fact, that actually studied even classics, which is studying about history and studying about literature and everything, and ended up being a banker. But
do you think that gives you a different edge to yourself, when you're dealing in terms of how you deal with problems with solutions?
Yeah, I think my engineering degree, I guess, helped me come up with ways to think about tackling problems from a different angle. And I guess it does help when it comes to trying to find the most efficient manner to actually solve a problem. But yeah, I think just naturally also, and I guess the drive and passion to actually try and solve problems, I think that does help.
Interesting you mentioned problem, because I do believe that starting a startup is not exactly a easy process, right? I'm sure you've been through ups and downs throughout your journey here. So just want to pick your brain on that. When you started CapBay, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced? Because I can imagine it's not easy starting something new in a country like Malaysia, right?
Well, a couple of things on that. I think firstly, Malaysia, I feel, is one of the best places to actually start an entrepreneurial journey. I think, got great talent here. I think in terms of the business ecosystem as well, I think it's relatively quite productive, and there's a lot of support systems, even the government agencies are also helping. But yeah, just coming back to it, I think one of the first few challenges that we had when starting out as a company was actually building that trust, right? I think, especially in the financial services world, trust and credibility is very important. And that's why we knew that we needed to get a license for this, firstly. And then when some of the ways to actually tackle and overcome these challenges was actually because getting the first anchor customer. Entrepreneurship is not easy. It's a long journey, but getting that first anchor customer is quite crucial. From there, once you start building out your anchor customer, you can form customer-centric approaches towards solving the problems that these customer has. And once you've done that, and then you have a success story. And this success story can then be a case study to build up, and then push out your word, get the word out,
and then build your name there from there, basically. Yeah?
Exactly.
But, going back on the compliance part, right? Applying for Securities Commission in Malaysia, was the process there difficult for you guys? Was it a lot more challenging, given that you're a new sector there, or was it business as usual? They know what to do. or were there a lot of confusion? Like, oh, what do you guys do? How does this work? What's your sector about?
I'd say actually, yeah, you got it. It's a good question because the regulators actually did find it a little challenging to actually regulate something that they're not used to.
Yeah, exactly. I figured it would be that much.
Exactly. In fact, even digital banks also is a new form of finance, new form of banking where I think even Bank Negara is also have to change their way of assessing it. But I have to say that kudos to Securities Commission Malaysia. They've actually were one of the first few in the region to actually publish their P2P and equity crowdfunding guidelines. So they have taken that approach to actually have a bit more regulatory scrutiny in terms of this kind of areas, because some countries actually they don't really regulate P2P.
I do believe that in some cases there are where P2P financing is not regulated. There have been numerous cases that are so we say not so savory in that sense. So so in your opinion, like Malaysia has a better guideline in terms of like handling P2P financing in this country, right? How do you feel about the government's approach to that? Do you think like they're open arms about this, or are they very still hesitant about the industry?
I think there's definitely a good balance, right, in terms of innovation as well as compliance. Because I think yes, they want to try and get as much innovation as possible, but they also have a fiduciary duty to actually protect investors. Like if let's say they lose their money and then they get a lot of complaints from that. So there is a bit of a hard balance. So I would say generally the Malaysian regulators have found a balance where it's a little bit on somewhat conservative side. Some more advanced economies or developed countries, they're a bit more relaxed, but then when stuff happens, then they get fined or they get reprimanded and so on. They let you, they give principles around it, and then they let you kind of play around those principles.
I mean, that's the whole idea, that having compliance is to protect the people in the industry as well, and the key players such as yourself. But you did mention a bit about innovation, and it's something that we want to talk about right after this. We'll take a quick break. And we're back, and this time, as always, we have Darrel with us. We're going to talk about CapBay's innovation and how they're innovating the market space. But first, before we start off, I need to ask you, like, the association with fintech, right? People have a common misconception thinking that it's only about digital payments and e-wallets. I'm sure fintech is more than that. In your perspective, how is fintech like reshaping the market, like reshaping the views, like?
Yeah, I think it's generally most people would have heard the e-wallet names, the payment providers, because that tends to be, there are many more out there. But maybe just an interesting fact that actually 65% of revenue in Southeast Asia for digital financing services is actually formed from lending services. This is actually based on the Temasek, Google Temasek and Bain C Economy report. Oh,
surprising! I did not know. I figured like digital payments is usually the majority usage for it, right?
Yeah, but yeah, I think there's still, because it's also comes to the point where lending is still a very crucial part for a lot of businesses. I think there's a lot of multiplier effect when you have good financial access to capital. You can then grow the economy much better as well.
I think accessibility is a key point here, right? Because like, as we mentioned before, like accessibility to finance is one of the problems that SMEs face in Malaysia, right? And having that digital access is probably allow people to do more.
Yeah.
And having it on your phone even is like super convenient, right? Compared to like you have to go, maybe you're somewhere in Kelantan and you have to go all the way to KL just to get a financing. Having the accessibility is probably a boon for them. Do you feel like that's where fintech is burgeoning in terms of like providing the accessibility for people?
Yeah. I think that's definitely what we're trying to do. Maybe I'll give you a kind of an example to actually help visualize. But it's a little B2B centric because that's the space that we play in. So last year, the government actually introduced e-invoicing. We actually want to make it such that her business logs on and sees all the invoices, typically they get paid on these invoices about 60 to 90 days later. CapBay, what we want to do is, with a click of a button, there'll be a button there. You click it and you can get your money within a matter of days, or in fact, within the same day. I think that's where we actually want to move towards, where we actually want to provide better access to capital and make it more efficient, make it more flexible, and make it quite easy for businesses to actually.
So that's the point that you guys are trying to do, like solving one of the biggest challenges for SMEs, which I believe is cash flow, right? And this CapBay model, it's helping maintain that liquidity in that sense. Just from, if you're okay to share, like how do you see that kind of response has been for SMEs having that access? Were they like, oh wow, this is amazing, or they're like, is this for real, or are people like still like hesitant about it, or are they like, okay, I want to do this, I want to keep doing this? Like, how has the response been for that side?
So you're right, cash is king, so liquidity is very important for SMEs. But yeah, so when we first started off, yes, there was that credibility, trust issue. But because we are licensed by SC or registered with SC, so we have a bit more credibility in that sense. They can actually check the SC website, they can find our name there. But yeah, when it comes to accessibility, they do see a lot more adoption when it comes to, we make it quite easy such that they are able to apply digitally online. Everything can be submitted online. They can actually get their financing within a matter of days as opposed to like a month or so when it comes to like traditional methods.
That's already an amazing prospect for a lot of SMEs, but I want to go back to you and mentioning your credibility. I feel like it's time to put some cap on the feather, okay? Because CapBay has received numerous recognition since its session, right? If you don't mind sharing with us, like what were the achievements that you're most proud of so far?
For me, been quite humbled, especially with the whole CapBay team help. We couldn't have done some of these achievements. And for example, hitting financing of worth more than 4 billion ringgit to more than 2,000 SMEs. I think that goes back to the problem statement where we want to provide better access of capital to all these businesses. That to me is one of the biggest achievements. The other ones are, for example, we've started to expand regionally across Southeast Asia. We have offices in Thailand and Singapore. We actually help to fund a lot of these SMEs, some of which are actually Malaysian businesses as well. And also we've managed to actually do this while maintaining profitability. So that's also another aspect that we find quite useful when it comes to a kind of a funding winter climate, when it comes to equity financing.
In terms of your expansion plans, well, which we will talk a bit more, but I just want to get your mentality here. Was the dream always been to start in Malaysia, or would you like, if Singapore had started first, would you have gone there? Or was it like, I got to bring it back to Malaysia first? Has it always been like Malaysia first, then the rest of the world kind of thing?
Yeah. For us, Malaysia is home for us, and I do feel, as I mentioned previously, Malaysia is a good place to actually incubate and actually have a lot of startups coming on board. So even though we're expanding across regionally, Malaysia is still our core hub when it comes to our operations. So we still want to ensure that we actually build up resources and talent in Malaysia as we grow across the different countries.
As you expand globally, which is a good segue to something that you guys receive recognition for globally with CNBC's top 200 global fintech companies. Like, that is quite a feather in the cap. So if you don't mind me asking, like, what innovations do you think played part for CapBay to reach that kind of level? Because that's not an easy recognition to receive.
Yeah. I mean, that recognition, we were quite humbled by it. We're quite surprised because we got it for 2 consecutive years, and these are the people on that list are actually fintech giants like PayPal, Stripe, Tencent. So these are
big
pretty
boys.
much big financial powerhouses of the global. But yeah, so coming back to some of the innovations, I think goes to, firstly, in terms of our alternative assessment, we've managed to actually help underserved SMEs through our alternative credit scoring method that we've actually used like AI methods to actually form part of our assessment. And that has opened many doors to allow businesses to come in. Secondly, I think a lesser known thing is actually we are doing quite a lot of Shara financing.
Okay. Was it not exactly something that you guys planned to do in the initial stages, or has that always been the plan to be part of Sharia compliancy?
Yeah, so actually that was since 3-4 years ago. We've actually decided to actually grow bigger in terms of Sharia financing. So much so that we acquired a stake in Islamic Factoring House, where we essentially wanted to prove where we can transform a traditional business to actually use digital and innovative means. So much so that we actually turned around the company. It's grown 4x its bottom line, and the cost to income ratio has also gotten much better ever since we took control.
So, AI-driven Islamic Sharia compliancy. These are all the key points you think like makes CapBay receive that recognition to that level, right?
Also on the technology where we are able to adopt much better and fast and flexible solutions to our customers.
Of course, when you grow, you have to be flexible as well to maintain that profitability. But just to on the last point, I want to go back to what we mentioned earlier about regulatory compliance and everything. So regulation is always key in terms of like for fintech companies. How does CapBay balance innovation with compliance? And do you see regulation evolving in favor of fintech, or is it still like hesitancy or like pushback there?
Yeah, so this brings me back to my Bank Negara days. I think for me, you know, my experience there taught me that compliance is a very important thing, especially in the fintech space. So we do take it quite seriously. So much so that, you know, some of the things that brings back memories is back then during my time in Bank Negara, one of the large global banks was actually fined $1.9 billion for anti-money laundering. And so recently there was a crypto company that got fined $4.3 billion when it comes to infringing some banking secrecy act. So you know, these compliance is actually quite crucial, where there could actually be punitive monetary fines for non-compliance.
So you don't look at compliance as a hindrance to performing in this market. You feel like it's a necessity in order for us to be better in the market, I would assume, right?
Yeah, so just latching on to that, we have always placed importance in terms of building a relationship with our regulators. So we do talk to Securities Commission as well as Bank Negara to actually understand where they're moving towards, and because they also understand the pivotal role that fintechs also play when it comes to financial inclusion. So it is definitely a symbiotic relationship. I think we've moved away from, you know, just very traditional ways of, like, you know, big giant banks. There's actually a role for fintechs that can actually move faster, be more innovative to actually introduce new products and services to the market.
Just to pick your brain on this, how optimistic do you feel like the market is when it comes to regulatory government bodies working with fintech companies? Do you feel like there's a very big optimistic view here that everyone can work together and build something big? Or is it still a bit contentious in that sense?
It is a bit of balance that has to be played, but I think the Malaysian government, Securities Commission, has had quite a number of has had quite a few innovations or policies that they've put in. For example, they've actually introduced the MySafe, the Malaysian Co-Investment Fund, that has actually helped to introduce a lot more, to give a spotlight into ECF and P2P financing. There's also the sandboxes that they've done. Recently also they've introduced more partnerships with even different government agencies. So there was an announcement a few weeks back by MITI, the Ministry of International Trade and Investments. They are also now doing it's called a COSI fund, where essentially they are using alternative finances like P2P and ECF to actually channel funds like government money to some of these SMEs in the manufacturing industry.
So you're trying to like basically help them navigate this in order to reach the SMEs better, right? For financing and all this. Okay, that's quite an innovative approach. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you guys are planning ahead, which we will be talking about after this, what CapBay has in plan for the future. And we're back, and we're here going to talk about CapBay's future vision and innovation. One thing we did mention earlier is you guys are starting to think about expanding, right? The reach-wise, you've already established well yourself in Malaysia. Where else are you guys looking in terms of like global expansion? What markets are you looking at in the future?
We feel there's a lot of opportunities in developing countries such as the whole Southeast Asian region. I think that's one part that we feel has a lot more potential. So we do want to grow and actually help serve. So yeah, you're right. We've focused on actually helping Malaysian companies with their Malaysian kind of trade. Now we've set up offices in Singapore and Thailand to actually help the whole intra-trade between Malaysia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and in fact Singapore, Thailand, and even with other countries like with China as well. So we are seeing a lot more opportunity in this intra-ASEAN trade. And this year with Malaysia being like the host of the ASEAN community ASEAN meeting convention, this is actually quite a crucial period where we're actually doubling down in terms of our investments and actually opportunities to actually capture the intra-ASEAN trade to actually finance it.
Just to pick your brain on this, where do you guys see the demand coming from? Like, are you seeing from businesses asking like, hey, I see Malaysia has CapBay and they have this financing sector, we want that too? Or are you just looking at developing countries and say like, well, there's potential there, let's try to go there and see how it works? Where are you guys getting your data from, basically?
Yeah, so it's a combination. So we are looking from a macro perspective, like looking at the funding gaps that's required for a lot of these countries. We're also being driven by our customers. So we've actually got quite a number of customers. So we actually started out in Singapore and Thailand because we did a survey and asked where are you operating in? Where can we help you more? So going back to the whole customer-centric approach, we then said, okay, fine. We did a survey and Singapore and Thailand were top of the list, and that's why we are actually present in those countries to actually help some of our customers to actually provide them with better financing solutions and access to capital.
How has the process been moving into this region? Where you find like, they're much more relaxed, they're much more open to CapBay there, or is it still a bit of a journey there?
It's definitely more of the latter. It's definitely a journey. It's kind of like going back to when we first started out CapBay again, go and apply for licenses, trying to secure an anchor customer, build the credibility.
I mean, but you guys got experience now, so
it definitely helped. Yeah, I mean, it didn't take like, from a matter of like, a couple of months to like shorter than 6 months or so. But like, yes, it's definitely with experience and actually a bigger team now. I would definitely credit the team as well.
Definitely the team helps, right?
Yes.
But looking into CapBay, you want to look at it in long term as well. So when we think long term, 5 to 10 years, where do you see CapBay going? Like, what's the vision there in the next 5 to 10 years for CapBay?
Good question. I think when it comes to CapBay's long-term vision, we truly see ourselves as being the dominant player when it comes to alternative financing in the region. We actually don't see ourselves just purely working on our own. We actually want to work together with other players to then also provide embedded financing services to our customers. So we think that it's important that in 10 years' time, businesses will not struggle to actually get financing anymore. It could be a simple click of a button where they can actually get better access to financing, and financing wouldn't really be an issue anymore. That is,
So there's a big master plan there to make financing accessible as possible for you guys, but at the same time, it's more about collaborating with different sectors as well, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's still like from their side some misunderstanding about financing from you guys. So I just want to ask you guys, like, what's the common misconception there for business owners when it comes to financing from you guys? Like, what do you think they needs to know that needs to be cleared up, basically?
Firstly, a common misconception is that alternative financing is only when businesses struggle to get financing.
I would think so too, right? Because like when you need money, then only you look for money, right?
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that's not the case if you're looking for growth.
Yeah. So, I mean, the smart entrepreneurs that come to us also realize that they actually do need capital to actually accelerate their business. And sometimes, the traditional methods aren't as fast or flexible when it comes to that. So they come to us, they can actually get financing to then grow their business to actually capture more opportunities. And ultimately, that for business owners, I think, and businesses actually would enhance their business much better and grow much faster in this climate.
Do you think it took a lot of convincing for this business owners to understand that concept? Because again, my personal opinion is that businesses are only looking at financing when they need it, not when they feel like it's time to grow, right? So in your perspective or in your experiences, it took a lot to convince these people or the businesses to look out for you guys.
I think it did take a bit of time. I think firstly, because they would be more used to the traditional methods of going to a bank, showing up to a branch, submitting a lot of documents, wait to hear back, and then 2 weeks later,
red tape basically.
yeah, a lot of red tape. So we want to make it fast and accessible. I think as easy as I guess previously we talked about payments and e-wallets. We want to make it as simple. Most of the things can be done through your phones. Don't really have to walk into a branch and things like that. So we do want to make it as fast and cheap and accessible to customers.
Do you think like this kind of approach will be ubiquitous? Like will this be a common method, you think, in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, do you have that optimism there?
Yes, I truly believe so. I mean, think about it, like probably 2-3 years ago, everyone is still dealing in cash, whereas now everything, e-wallet is become ubiquitous.
I mean, there was something that happened that caused us to shift slightly. Yeah. But it is a seismic shift between like cash and digital. Even countries like Japan, which was notorious for being like cash only, have started adopting like digital payments. So yeah, maybe you're onto something in terms of like things changing the next 5-10 years. But that's looking that ahead. Upcoming for you guys, right? You talk about expanding and partnering. Are there any initiatives or partnership that you guys are looking forward to that you guys are willing to share with us today?
Sure. I think in Malaysia, we're focusing on quite a few sectors to actually develop further. Because when it comes to supply chain finance, actually having a good understanding of the whole sector and how it operates is quite crucial to then provide better accessible financing and understand the risk. So we are moving more towards the healthcare space. I think that's another sector that we've been doubling down on our resources. Helping a lot of pharmacies, helping a lot of doctors, helping a lot of healthcare like hospitals as well to actually provide say like medical equipment to like the dialysis centers, things like that. So we are doing quite a bit of partnerships as well as MOU signing. Quite a few names like Al Arif, EMAT Asia. These are some of the names that we are working towards getting an MOU signed. So it should come up within the next few soon.
Coming soon. But just to pick your brain on that, in terms of like the healthcare industry, was there always that gap there? Was there always that vacuum in terms of like financing? Were there really big demands for financing for the healthcare sector? Because understandably, our healthcare sector requires a lot of care and a lot of attention there. So where did you see yourself playing part in that movement, I would say?
Yeah, so I think with all these, because there's also a wave of new companies, new startup companies, for example, like Health Metrics, which we're also signing an MOU with. They are struggling to actually get good access to capital. And that's where we can actually step in to actually help some of these companies to actually expand their opportunities when they start moving more towards all these healthcare clients.
Bottom line is providing as much financing to people who need it most, basically, so they can do their business better, right?
Yeah, well said.
We're on the final stretch. This is the home stretch. It's the part where you get to shout out a bit about CapBay and yourself. So tell us, our audience, where can they go if they want to learn more about CapBay and what you guys got planned in the future? You can find us on our website, www.capbay.com, and follow us on the usual, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And I think, to aspiring entrepreneurs or businesses out there, if you need financing, please come up and look for us. And also, if you are a potential investor that wants to help support us in our journey to help fund businesses, you can also come onto our website to actually be a P2P investor to help this underserved community. Awesome. Thank you, Darrel, for coming over. Again, if you want to learn more about CapBay, we'll include all the necessary links in the description. And yeah, that's it. Thank you again for coming. And if you enjoyed this episode, we hope to see you guys in the next one. Until then, thank you. Thanks so much, Azrin. Thanks for having me.